The wise old bearded man is a classical figure in storytelling. We all know about Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings, but there's also figures like Merlin from the Arthur's Saga, or more recently, Harry Potter's Dumbledore. This character is so ubiquitous that Joseph Campbell considered it an archetype of storytelling when he analyzed myths and stories from all over the world for his body of work. So naturally, Dungeons & Dragons needs a wise old wizard as well, which it has in the form of Elminster Olmar, also known as the Old Mage or the Sage of Shadowdale. Truth be told, when I first saw him, I actually thought this is just Ed Greenwood's character from his own Dungeons & Dragons sessions, mostly because of the similar beard. And while this is not the case, the two of them do share a very specific fourth wall breaking bond. Elminster is depicted as the one telling Ed all about Faerun, the Sword Coast, and many other things that Ed uses in his stories. And if you don't know who Ed Greenwood is, then what the hell are you actually doing here? All jokes aside, Ed Greenwood is the author of many of the stories that we now consider Dungeons & Dragons lore. He's also on YouTube, by the way, making really great videos about D&D. Not that he would need the shoutout, but he's getting it anyway, since he is most likely the singular best source that you can find if you want to learn about Dungeons & Dragons stories. And I hope he never finds my videos, because I am so afraid that he will find thousands of errors and I will just turn into dust from shame. Before that happens, please like the video and maybe leave a comment for engagement. Who knows, maybe Ed Greenwood will see this video and you guys will see me suffer. I know this is what all of you secretly want. But anyway, spoiler alert, since today we will be talking about Elminster and therefore about a lot of stories from Dungeons & Dragons, which includes Baldur's Gate 3. I will try to keep the spoilage to a minimum, since many of you are probably still playing this game, so I will avoid major story points as good as I can, but some things will come up, so be warned. Elminster is a well-known character in the Forgotten Realms setting of Dungeons & Dragons. He has appeared in various novels, adventures, and previous Baldur's Gate games. Elminster is a wizard of great reputation throughout the realms. He's also an old friend of Volo, and probably one of the only ones who tries to actually fact-check his books, including Volo's Guide to Baldur's Gate. According to Gale in Baldur's Gate 3, Elminster is probably about 3 centuries old. Elminster has a distinctive hawk-like nose, which is probably his most notable feature, along with his iconic hat. This feature has set him apart ever since his youth, even during the time he spent as a woman. More on that a bit later, and continued to distinguish him well into adulthood. In his younger years, he had stark black hair and maintained a beard that eventually turned grey as he grew older. His eyes were vibrantly blue and accompanied by big, brushy, blue-grey eyebrows. In his later years, the elderly Elminster started to exhibit certain signs of aging. He had a more gruff voice and weathered features, but still remained attentive. He usually just wears quite plain attire, often just simple black or grey robes. In Baldur's Gate 3, however, we see him wearing a little bit nicer attire. While Elminster had the ability to assume various appearances, including those of certain monsters like beholders for example, he typically chose to travel in a more discreet manner. To do this, he usually relies on spells such as shape change or invisibility. Elminster is typically a witty, clever and charming man, but he can also be quite stern and serious. Additionally, he is a natural storyteller and very skilled actor. He rarely reveals his true nature fully to anyone except for his closest friends. And depending on what his goals are, he can present himself as a trickster, a stern father figure, a fool, or whatever persona he chooses. While the wizard was skilled in many areas, there were certain things that Elminster struggled with. For example, he was not a very good singer. He was apparently completely tone deaf, despite having quite a nice smoky baritone voice. He was absolutely not musically gifted, unable to write down music or play any instruments. Additionally, he had also difficulty with arithmetic and was notoriously bad at horseback riding. One of his quirks was also that he snored very loudly while sleeping, but usually magically silences himself in order to avoid disturbing his friends. And as one of the chosens of the goddess Mystra, he actually didn't really need to sleep anyway. Before he dedicated his life to the Mistran faith or embarked on his wizard studies, young Elminster already displayed exceptional intelligence. He was able to heal himself naturally and detect magical auras at will. Additionally, he had an eidetic memory, enabling him to recall information from years past in a very impressive manner. After his parents were killed, Elminster lived as an outcast and bandit for a while, before meeting the goddess Mystra in form of an avatar called Myriala. In order to save him from some enemies, she transformed him into a woman who called herself Elmara and served at the temple of Mystra for a certain time, to become closer with the weave and magic. The weave, for anyone who doesn't know that yet, is the mystical force that the goddess Mystra controls, which sorcerers call upon to cast magic. When the two of them found out that the man murdering Elminster's parents was actually an outworldly creature, Elminster accepted becoming a chosen of Mystra in order to receive the powers to defeat the foe. Elminster later moved to Mithranor, the elven city, to further study magic. He stayed there for almost a century, participating in a variety of events. He was also involved in the founding of the Harpers, who you might still know from Baldur's Gate 3. Apparently it was Elminster who chose the harp as their symbol. He also had to deal with unusual magic created by the Netherese arcanist Karsus, who is also referred a lot in Baldur's Gate 3 since the crown of Karsus is a very important object to the story. Elminster bested the Seven Sisters, daughters of Mystra, and even had a relationship with one of them, Storm Silverhand. During the times of trouble, Elminster fought next to figures like Midnight, Cyric and Kelimvor against the Dead Three, and later he also experienced the Spell Plague, where Cyric together with the goddess of darkness Shar actually killed Mystra. And apart from that, he had many more adventures. Once again, it's about 20 books. In Baldur's Gate 3, we meet Elminster when he delivers Mystra's message to Gale, charging him with a certain task. To help ease the task, Elminster actually quite easily fixes a problem that you might have experienced if you have Gale in your party. He then departs as quickly as he arrived. Basically, he acts as a glorified messenger within this game. If you are able to defeat him, which is not that easy, I think, since he is a level 20 enemy with stats that you could only dream of, he actually dissolves into water, which suggests that the being you thought was not even the real Elminster, but only a construct. Following his retirement, Elminster continued to travel across Toril, but did spend some more time in seclusion at his home in the Dalelands. During that time of his life, El was a little bit more grumpy and less inclined to speak to either visitors or strangers. By that time in history, El had actually already gained knowledge of almost every spell that was commonly available to the typical spellcaster in the realms. However, he did not really use every spell that he knew, preferring to avoid those from the Conjuration School of Magic or any spells associated with creatures from the lower planes. Elminster was also considered one of the modern masters of counterspelling and metamagic, which is the ability of spellcasters to shape and personalize their own spells. He was also able to use magic that shaped the elements of the natural world, kind of like a druid, and was familiar with powerful and esoteric spells, only known to a select few spellcasters. And while he was very selective with his use of psionics, he was also proficient in a number of its disciplines. In addition to all of that, as a chosen of Mystra, Elminster was also granted numerous abilities that were spell-like, but not really spells. He had the ability to wield the goddess's silver fire, and also to channel spellfire, which is pure and raw energy taken directly from the weave itself. The Old Mage had many friends and acquaintances all over the world, with the most notably probably being Ed of the Greenwood on Earth. As I said before, Elminster told him a lot about Faerun while enjoying refreshments, and apparently the Sage of Shadowdale was very fond of pina coladas. But Elminster's allies also included the Harpers, the other chosen of Mystra, especially the Symbol, and the Knights of Mithranor. His most important friend, however, is probably his scribe Laio. Actually, Elminster was so famous across the realms that he had at least one drink named after him. There was a dark beer from Immersea, which was known as Elminster's Choice, but however, Elminster did not particularly like that drink. During his life, Elminster also journeyed throughout the realms, exploring various planets and otherworldly planes. His mission usually involved battling all the evil forces and safeguarding Faerûn from numerous threats to prevent its destruction. He viewed himself as a guardian of the realms and often took on the role of a mediator, always trying to prioritize the long-term well-being and prosperity of the world we live in. I don't know about you, but I always had a soft spot for the old, wise characters that had a lot of experience and usually hide a lot of might and authority under their calm and gentle appearance. And Elminster definitely falls into that category. He might not be a god or anything like that, but definitely not someone you cross lightly. If you have him as a friend though, I guess that might be quite fun. But what do you think about the Old Mage? Let me know in the comments, and as always, please like the video if you liked it. And if you want to stay up to date with any new videos that I make, subscribe to my channel. I hope you have a good day and see you again in the next video. Bye bye.